In the 21st century, the deadliest battleground is not the sky, but the Earth itself. They traded satellites for shovels, drones for dugouts. What happens when warfare reverts 100 years, redefining survival not as victory, but as simply making it to tomorrow? Welcome to the brutal resurgence. For decades, the strategic calculus of warfare promised transcendence.
We spoke of surgical strikes, hypersonic speed, and air superiority rendering ground engagements obsolete, a vestige of slower, less sophisticated conflicts. We believed the era of industrial slaughter, the meat grinder of the Western Front, was relegated solely to the dust-laden Elliott. In the 21st century, the deadliest battleground is not the sky, but the Earth itself. They traded satellites for shovels, drones for dugouts.
What happens when warfare reverts 100 years, redefining survival not as victory, but as simply making it to tomorrow? Welcome to The Brutal Resurgence, Volumes of History. We were tragically, brutally wrong. The 21st century, with its algorithms and hyperspectral sensors, has paradoxically dragged us back into the deepest, darkest mud of human conflict, the trench.
The brutal resurgence of static, protracted warfare is not merely a tactical footnote. It is a profound philosophical indictment of modern conflict, demonstrating that no technological marvel can fully supersede the horrifying simplicity of attrition. The modern conflict, sprawling across scarred European plains, is defined by the depth of the earth the soldier digs beneath his boots. The trench itself is the primary protagonist in this grim drama.
It is not the meticulously engineered, concrete-lined defensive structure of textbook theory, but a hastily carved, constantly evolving scar in the terrain, a labyrinthine, claustrophobic necessity forged under immediate, overwhelming fire. It is a monument to survival, built not of steel, but of desperate human labor and the omnipresent threat of collapse. The immediate environment is defined by verticality, or rather, the stark existential loss of it. The soldier lives in a permanent crouch, his world bounded by earthen walls that offer shelter from fragmentation and shrapnel, yet simultaneously imprison him. Above the parapet lies no man's land, a term resurrected from a century past, now saturated not just with barbed wire and shell craters, but with the invisible, deadly webs of electronic warfare and the relentless, mechanical eyes of the drone. The mud, the ever-present, suffocating geological reality, is the silent arbiter of fate. It clings to everything, corrupts every mechanism, breeds disease, and renders movement torturous. It is a living, breathing entity that swallows the fallen and grounds the ambitious. When the rains come, the trenches transform into canals of liquid misery, where pumps run ceaselessly, fighting a losing battle against the earth reclaiming its own. The constant immersion in cold, polluted water strips the soldier of warmth, sanity, and basic physical integrity.
This is the reality of the 21st century front line, a horrifying echo chamber where the ghosts of the Somme meet the cutting edge of drone technology. Yet the true brutality lies not just in the environment, but in the relentless nature of the contemporary threat. Where trench warfare of old was characterized by massive, scheduled assaults preceded by days of inaccurate preparatory bombardment, the modern version is a perpetual, unscheduled catastrophe.
Precision artillery, guided by drone surveillance and GPS coordinates, means that every meter of the front line is pre-registered, pre-targeted, and potentially fatal. There is no safe moment, no reprieve, only the constant high-frequency anticipation of the incoming strike. The soldier is perpetually awaiting the whistle of the projectile, a sound that, unlike the vast, often indiscriminate shelling of the early 20th century, now carries the terrifying certainty of proximity and accuracy. This shift transforms the soldier's psychological landscape entirely. Survival is reduced to instantaneous reaction time and the depth of one's dugout. Dugouts, often reinforced with timber or scrap metal, become subterranean bunkers, essential refuges against the crushing power of modern high-explosive ordnance. They are dark, cramped, and often shared with water and vermin, yet they are the only true sanctuary against a sky that is no longer neutral, but actively hostile. This psychological attrition is perhaps the most insidious weapon deployed in this static conflict. The constant exposure to trauma, the inability to move freely, the erosion of personal dignity, and the profound, crushing boredom interspersed with moments of absolute terror create a unique form of combat fatigue. The war is fought not just against the enemy, but against the insidious creeping of despair, cold, and inertia. The supply chain, the umbilical cord of this war, is also fundamentally redefined by the trench. Resupply and medical evacuation become Herculean, often nocturnal, tasks, executed under the threat of loitering munitions and thermal cameras. Every tin of rations, every round of ammunition, every liter of water must be physically carried through communication trenches, a convoluted maze designed to shield movement from the aerial gaze. The logistics of the front line demand a return to sheer, exhausting porterage, contradicting the tenets of automated warfare. Furthermore, the role of the sniper is amplified. Utilizing advanced optics and thermal imaging, the modern marksman is a ghost, exploiting the narrow gaps in the defensive profile. Any head raised above the parapet, any momentary lapse in vigilance, is immediately punished. The trench, therefore, imposes a radical form of self-censorship, forcing the infantryman to internalize his world, reducing his field of vision to the narrow slit of his firing aperture or periscope. The soldier becomes an earthbound creature, bound by the limits of his trench, relying on peripheral technologies, fiber optic cables, specialized sensors, and shielded radio equipment to maintain contact with the outside world. This convergence of ancient defensive structure and cutting-edge technology defines the brutal resurgence. The mud is medieval, but the threat is futuristic. The static front line has re-established the grim calculus of purely mechanical, body-count warfare, demonstrating that despite a century of innovation, the ultimate arbiter of victory remains the capacity to endure unimaginable hardship while holding a few crucial, muddy meters of earth against a relentless, technologically augmented adversary. The trench has returned, not as an anachronism, but as the inevitable terminus of a conflict where firepower outpaces mobility, chaining humanity once more to the earth. The trenches of the Great War were defined by the overwhelming superiority of artillery and the machine gun, weapons that rendered the open field a charnel house. Today, the principles of static defense remain, but the threat vectors have undergone a terrifying evolution, transforming no man's land from a chaotic, open expanse into a tightly controlled, digitized kill zone. The defining element of this modern trench conflict is the eye in the sky, the ubiquitous, humming presence of the unmanned aerial vehicle,
or drone.
This technological leap has utterly redefined the concept of cover and concealment, introducing a layer of perpetual existential dread that even the veterans of 1917 could scarcely comprehend. The drone is the ultimate evolution of the observation balloon, the perfect tireless sentinel. It operates with impunity, impervious to the mud that binds the infantryman, yet carrying the power of immediate pinpoint destruction.
Every movement, every logistical tremor, every hasty repair attempt on the defensive line is subject to its unflinching digital scrutiny. The soldier's life is now governed by the thermal signature he emits and the electronic noise of his communications. The drone is deployed not just for reconnaissance, but for the direct delivery of explosive payloads. From large, dedicated surveillance platforms guiding heavy ordnance, down to the small, cheap, and devastating first-person view (FPV) attack drones, which are effectively flying fragmentation grenades steered with chilling accuracy into trenches, firing positions, or even the narrow slit of a bunker.
This technological democratization of precision lethality means that the cost of killing has plummeted, while the inherent risk of exposure has skyrocketed. Countering this pervasive air threat requires more than just traditional anti-aircraft fire. It necessitates a sophisticated and relentless electronic war. The battle for the electromagnetic spectrum is fought fiercely above and between the trenches.
Electronic warfare (EW) units employ sophisticated jamming equipment, attempting to sever the link between the drone operator and their mechanical servant, or to spoof GPS signals, rendering guided munitions lost and harmless. The soldier's helmet might be made of steel, but his survival often hinges on the quality of his battery-powered EW backpack.
The electromagnetic silence, the deliberate shutdown of all transmitting devices, becomes a mandatory, often terrifying tactical necessity, forcing troops back into analog methods of communication just to avoid drawing the digital spotlight. This war against the invisible waves is as critical as the exchange of gunfire. Furthermore, the very construction of the trench adapts to this new airborne reality. Modern defensive doctrine mandates anti-drone nets strung above key positions, or the construction of heavy overhead cover, HOC, designed not just to withstand artillery fragmentation, but the direct vertical strike of a loitering munition. The roof of the trench, once a secondary concern, is now a primary defensive priority, turning the trench into an even more confining, cave-like structure. Below the mud, the hidden war of tunneling and deep excavation continues the struggle for survival. Logistics and medical evacuation, deemed suicidal above ground, are increasingly conducted through subterranean passages and deep communication trenches that mimic the mining operations of the First World War. These tunnels, often poorly ventilated and structurally precarious, are lifelines, delivering supplies, extracting the wounded, and even serving as covert launching points for counterattack squads who seek to emerge behind the immediate front lines. The constant, gnawing presence of the enemy's mining efforts necessitates its own specialized counter-warfare, where acoustic sensors and seismic monitors listen for the subtle sounds of shovels and picks beneath the earth, turning the ground itself into a contested strategic plane. The psychological toll of this high-tech attrition is profound. The soldier operating in this environment is trapped in a constant state of hypervigilance, knowing that death can descend silently from an unseen predator at any moment, guided by artificial intelligence and executed by a remote operator thousands of meters away.
Heroism is no longer defined by the magnificent charge, but by the stoic acceptance of being a fixed target. Endurance replaces audacity as the highest martial virtue.
The redefinition of survival in this modern trench warfare centers on absolute discipline in concealment, mastery of counter-surveillance techniques, and the adoption of low-tech defensive measures against high-tech threats, from simple earthworks and camouflage to the use of decoy thermal targets to confuse enemy spotters.
The soldier must be both a historical infantryman, capable of enduring the relentless hardships of the physical trench, and a contemporary technician, adept at operating complex electronic countermeasures. The brutal resurgence of the trench is thus a grim tableau of convergence. The enduring primal fear of artillery fire meets the chilling efficiency of the digital age.
It is the definitive proof that in a conflict defined by parity in firepower and technological density, mobility collapses and humanity is forced back into the earth.
The brutal resilience of the infantryman, deep in the mud, facing a sky filled with silicon-guided death, redefines the ultimate parameters of military survival and forces the world to confront the horrifying truth. The wars we thought we had outgrown have simply learned to fly, watch, and kill with terrifying, futuristic precision.